Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, and this video we're breaking down Alien Earth. Episode 7 brings us the penultimate entry, and we're now in the endgame. Everything's going wrong on Neverland, and we have several major things happening. Will Morrow escape? Will Wendy make it off the island? Will Heavy Spoilers conjunctivitis be cleared up by next week? Well, we'll have to wait and see, but a lot of things come from this episode. Arthur is dead, the chest burster's out, and Morrow's in the custody of Kirsch. He will curse the day he went to the island, and will likely be imprisoned alongside the hybrids next week. Beyond that, we also have some poor worker who'll have the eye put into their head. I can't wait to see it. Now, where we opens with the title and shots of the Xenomorph. We once more get several other images that recap things from last time. This includes the fly, Toodles' body, and what happened to Arthur. Both are victims of different creatures, with the specimens claiming their first two victims on Neverland. Now last week, we watched Slightly taking Arthur to the vent. Alien isolation style. In between the episode, he's brought him back to his room, and he's now kept him under his bed. The monster under the bed is of course a very common trope, and something lots of kids are scared of. Including me. Ooh. I love the heavy breathing sound mixed in with the facehugger though, and it's a marriage between the two creatures that produces a lovely little baby. Aww. Next to Slightly, we can also see a white tiger. These are native to India, which is where Slightly's from. They have a rare condition called leucism, which means their fur doesn't have pigmentation. Each of the kids also had a rare disease that led to their death, so he may see kinship in the tiger. Huge shout out to James Cruz G9B, who pointed out that Ardash Gurav was also in a Bollywood film called White Tiger, which this might be a reference to. James admitted he doesn't know if it's relevant, but we're giving you a shout out anyway because it's a nice little Easter egg. Slightly has no clue what's actually going to happen to Arthur, and clearly hasn't seen the movies. He's got a facehugger on him, and all Slightly's been told is that Arthur's gonna have a bad day.
They'll have a bad couple of days, for sure. But I'll make sure they're comfortable.
The kid is just super naive though, and thinks that Arthur will somehow survive the ordeal, even going so far as to comfort him. He tries to give him a drink and even adjust the fingers on the hugger. But this grip is extremely tight and will only be removed if it's cut off or frozen. Doing the former will make it spew acid, and this was seen in Kane and the captain on the Maginot. Romulus also showed how strong it was and how it was near impossible to pull off. Upon giving a drink to Arthur, its tail end tightens around his neck, which is also something that happened with Kane. Slightly also hasn't worked in the lab like Toodles and Curly, so has no clue about its physiology. The security here is just as bad as the Maginot, as how is there no sensors in the air vents? Why are kids allowed in the lab in the first place?
Why?
Fucking stupid. Once again though, he's pestered by Smee, who's desperate to know what he's doing. Smee gets pulled into his plan, and I do wonder if this is playing more into the Peter Pan metaphor. Morrow is Hook, and Hook's right-hand man is Smee. So Morrow using Slightly to pull Smee in could potentially lead to that. Slightly tries to say he's busy, but it cracked me up when Smee said,
"What are you talking about? We're never busy."
He does need the help though, as it's a race against time to get Arthur to Morrow. Now I really don't get what Morrow's plan was, because he should have known these kids were out the depth. Like if I told my kids, walk to the bottom of the street, they're gonna start, then go in someone's garden, end up climbing over a fence, and I'll never see them again. So I think Morrow was just playing with fire, and it was stupid thinking it was ever going to work. I think in the end though, he isn't that bothered, as all he wanted to do was basically destabilize the island. At the moment though, you can see that stress getting to Slightly. Ardash Gurav has been fantastic this season, and he perfectly plays this child who's going through a hell of a lot. He doesn't really act like an adult, and instead is just the victim of a manipulator, and he can't break out of his control. He's got tremendous range as a child, trapped in an adult's body, and Jonathan Ajayi also nails going from that inquisitive child to petrified of the monster under the bed. However, Slightly assures him that Arthur will be fine. This is fine.
This is fine.
I love how things change though as they learn the true horror. They seem to think the monster's just the facehugger as opposed to the chest burster, which they have no clue about just yet. The sad irony with the whole chest burster thing is that we know that Arthur and Dane were desperate to have kids. This whole island's basically a nightmare though, so it's taken that idea and twisted it to the extreme. The original Alien was obviously a discussion around male pregnancy and the fears that would come with that, and knowing he couldn't have kids and then has a kid at the end, very horrifying. Now the episode is called Emergence, and this could be applied to a number of characters. Firstly, we have the chestburster, and then we have Morrow emerging on the island. We also have Wendy emerging with her independence, and several of the characters going through an emergence and an emergency. The pair then reluctantly head out to the meeting point, and as we saw last week, the trackers have been disabled. Kirsch is also willing to let the plan play out so Morrow can fall into his trap. Now, another thing I found interesting is that there's no alarms going off inside the kids' rooms, and we only see it when Kirsch makes his way to the lab. We do find out later that this is perhaps done on purpose. Wendy wanted to tell the rest of the kids about Toodles' death, but she was stopped by Boy. He didn't want to panic or scare the rest of the kids, and it plays into the whole see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil thing in the compound. So by not having the alarms go off, it's just keeping them ignorant. Luckily for Slightly and Smee, this chaos is the perfect distraction. They sneak out easily while the facility's panicking about the samples. Some soldiers run with the samples case as Toodles being feasted upon by the fly, and we later learn that they digest their food on the outside. Like real-life flies, they spurt an enzyme that breaks down their food into a liquid. Kirsch theorizes that they eat minerals because organic matter was scarce on their planet. So naturally, the environment forced the species to evolve to the point they could ingest such materials. Being in the lab's an all-you-can-eat buffet, and we see as the other goes to the controls. I do wonder if these creatures might even be a way that Morrow escapes, albeit at the cost of his arm. Because of this though, they're the perfect enemy for the synths. Kirsch sends in the soldiers first, as they're not after the humans, which is something we theorized last week. They didn't come out when Arthur was in the lab, and it was only upon Slightly's arrival that they then left the nest. They don't even attack the security guards when they're about to be tasered. Kirsch also watches on, and we do know he could have stopped this at any time. He also remotely shuts the egg chamber door, again showing he could have saved Arthur's life should he have wanted to. In the end though, I love this symbiotic relationship that the synths and humans now have. Kirsch has to shut the door so the soldiers can enter, and this is so they can lock up the flies. Both need each other, and there's been a real cavalier attitude because Wendy took down a Xenomorph, but we need to remember how deadly these things are. That is what got Toodles killed, and he basically treated it like a zoo instead of a lab full of monsters. I think Kirsch is realizing as well that he's not as invincible as he thinks he is. So, what is his plan? What is it? Well, last week we theorized how he could be wanting to take out Boy, which is why he's letting Morrow's plan go ahead. The Asimov law of robotics states a robot cannot harm a human, and this, by proxy, would be a way to get free from his master. But we may have been off the mark with this one. He's made sure that Morrow's plans have gone ahead, but in the end, uses this to bring him to the island. In allowing this to go ahead, he's also gained another Xenomorph to study without technically putting anyone's life in danger. He would be forbidden from doing this, however, he's allowed Slightly to do it, which means they can now study this other Xenomorph. So yeah, two basically, they've got two now. Though I don't know if it prematurely bursting out was part of the plan, but hey, it happens to the best of us, mate.
It's not that common. It doesn't happen to every guy, and it is a big deal.
Boy then comes in and drops a hilarious British accent and says,
I'll send him to bed without any supper.
It's especially funny as Samuel Blanken is from Cheltenham. Cheltenham. Poor Toodles is just lying here though and referred to as that one by Kirsch. He then says Isaac, to which Boy is like, who? Simpson, eh? He had no idea that Toodles changed his name or even really cared. Now we learn that each hybrid costs $6 billion, but to be fair, he's just made $50 billion off Yutani. Conceptually, they can also download Toodles' brain and reset him, but they haven't worked out a way to do it practically. So sorry mate, there's no cloud saves for you. I do feel like the actor might return in season 2 though, and they could potentially use him in a similar way to Nibs, where he's like driven crazy by the fact that stuff's been erased and he's died. This is also something he could do with Wendy, as she's clearly going bad, and yeah, just lobotomizer. Anyway, that's the perfect segue. We're talking about lobotomies to go to our sponsors. This video is sponsored by Free Cash. FreeCash.com is the easy way to make money online by playing mobile games. It's an online platform where users from all over the world can sign up for free and make money online by playing mobile games. Doesn't matter what kind of games you're into, I guarantee there'll be one you enjoy playing on there. They cover a wide range of genres, and Free Cash allows you to make money in your downtime. If you're going on a trip and sat in the passenger seat, Why not make some money and add a bit under the budget? Beyond that, Free Cash also has a 4.8 star rating on Trustpilot. Plus, it's really easy to use. All you have to do is just click the game you want to play, scan the QR code, and then get playing. I did Solitaire Clash and basically played the game, killed some time, and then went back to Free Cash to see I had £8 in my wallet, which is roughly over $10 if you're in the US. That then opened the reward streak and I got a little bit extra. All you have to do is make sure that app tracking is enabled, and that will keep your progress locked to your account. Once you've hit your threshold, like me, you can withdraw money through PayPal. You can also turn it into an Amazon gift card and get yourself something from having fun playing games. If you want to make money in your spare time, then just click my link in the description or scan the QR code on screen right now. As a thank you, if you use my link as well, you'll get a $5 bonus on your first offer. Huge thank you to Free Cash again for sponsoring the video, and remember, you get a $5 bonus by scanning my QR code or clicking the link in the description. Cheers. They then review the footage and creepily even see the death through the eyes of Toodles, as we saw last week, and again here, the Ocelus charged at the wall, which led to the flies being able to feed on him. Now throughout the breakdowns, I think most people have just assumed that the eye's like an animal. However, it's extremely intelligent and even able to communicate. Showing this understanding of cause and effect demonstrates higher brain functions. The eye may even gain knowledge from its victims and learn their language and memory as it inhabits them. So by being in Shmuel, it would understand English. It also makes it clear it was waiting for Chibuzo to mess it up so the ticks could escape. It was also aware that the lock didn't shut in place and then used that as a way to escape as well. It's a great development in the series, and Boy might finally get that conversation he's been after. We'll get into that more when we discuss the pie scene, but yeah, T. Ocelus, he's the best alien in the world. Fuck you. Now they are interrupted by Wendy, who's now the only kid allowed in the lab. The accident is downplayed heavily and said that it couldn't be avoided, but it is contained.
What happened to Isaac?
Science.
Yes, science!
But yeah, it's clear Boy doesn't give a flying fuck about the hybrids outside of Wendy. This is because she's able to converse with the Xenomorph, which is something that will benefit him. Throughout all the alien movies are like, we must turn this into a weapon, and if they can communicate with it like how Wendy does, yeah, it makes sense they would actually work towards that. In the past, I've always been like, well, this plan's stupid, mate, because it's never going to work, but seeing how Wendy orders it about here, you can see how you could potentially sell that to investors. When it comes down to it though, the kids are just tools to either get him his goals on an intellectual level or in Prodigy's share price. Makes you wonder why he even started this project in the first place. Oh yeah!
Money!
We also get quick cuts of the destroyed Toodle's skull. This reminded me a lot of Alien 3 and how the damaged Bishop was shown in that. Wendy's also shocked there's the possibility she could be killed.
No, we can't. We're premium.
There's lots of things going on here, as not only is she facing her mortality, but she's also seeing what she looks like beneath her synthetic skin. This idea of facing one's death is shown in a more literal sense later on as Wendy visits where they buried the kids. Wendy can stay in the lab, but she has to be watched at all times. Kirsch also being cold furthers the idea that he did this whole thing on purpose. Boy's also casual about Wendy keeping this quiet, with it seeming like the emotions the hybrids will be going through could just end up in the way. Emotions are ultimately what makes them different to a machine though, and in the end, why I think, in the Alienverse, we didn't work towards this. Synths were always there because they were programmable slaves that wouldn't necessarily stand against their masters. Whereas kids having emotions, people questioning things, yeah, that would be a big problem for a corporation like Prodigy. We even see this idea of wanting to break out with a subtle overlay of the Xenomorph as she clearly starts to think of her escape.
We're not safe.
Now she's realised that this person can't protect her and the kids are in danger just by being here. She's then stopped by the guards, and if these caps look familiar, then it may be because it's what a lot of the Marines wore in Aliens. Though they try and get in her way, she's mastered Xenomorph on Duolingo and can now control the beast. It smashes against the glass like the like button, and we later see how it's basically an attack dog. I do hope they explain how she was able to pick up their signals, and also how she can mess with the security feeds. We know Boy hasn't added these as he doesn't know what's going on, so it does seem like she's gained these abilities herself. Finally, they're starting to see how powerful that she is, and that she can control technology and the creatures, which are the two biggest fears the humans have. Boy is shocked by this as he leaves, and then Wendy says,
You can't just erase things.
This is of course referring to Nibs having a trauma erased, and also Boy wanting to just silently brush Toodles' death under the carpet. Then goes from bad to worse for Boy as they learn someone's disabled the tracking. This was of course done by Arthur last week, and it seems like he's the only one who can get it back on. Otherwise, I'm guessing they just do it here. Not a great security measure, mate. Should have asked for the codes before you fired them. The Xenomorph then watches on, biding its time. From here, we cut to Joe going to Wendy's room. I love how the set designers still have lots of cuddly toys about, as it does highlight that Wendy's still a kid. It's also where she's at mentally, and also why she's not really thinking too much into the plan. Joe then tells her the trackers are off and that he's got a plan to escape, which we saw him drawing out last week. However, she feels responsible for the other hybrids. She's the one who sold them this deal with the devil and has damned them to this immortality of servitude. Going to get Nibs, we finally get a confrontation between Wendy and Curly. I did expect a bit more of a showdown after Curly was basically taken advantage that Wendy was knocked out. Curly has been your sort of Tinkerbell archetype, and she's been jealous of Wendy throughout the show. She wanted Pan's affection, but he's been besotted with Wendy. Now Curly's angry at first due to Nibs being freaked out. Curly loves Neverland, as to her it's the best place she's ever been. We don't really know much about their lives off the island, other than Nibs grew up on a farm and slightly has a family in India. But beyond that, there isn't really much to go on. Wendy and Slightly seem to be the only ones interested in their past lives, so I do feel like the characters could be nursing some trauma, especially Nibs. Nibs is holding Mr. Strawberry, which is a toy that she got from Dame Sylvia's room. She has to keep it after nursing it like a child, and it kind of represents the baby that she thinks she's having. It's also very similar how Newt carried around a doll in Aliens. The name may have another meaning, but all I can think of is the name uttered by Cooper in Twin Peaks. It was never really cleared up what that meant in the show, but let me know below exactly what you think it means. But yeah, both are weird shows with lots of crazy things going on, and Nibs is crazy. She says that no one can mess with her insides and that she still feels whole. I think it just shows she's completely broken, and like that doll on the beach, things aren't together. We as outsiders can see a lot's missing, and in the end she becomes a killer robot, which won't look good to the shareholders, especially as the whole thing is like robots can't harm humans. Ultimately though, Nibs decides to go with Joe and Wendy.
We're all gonna die here.
Now this has a twofold meaning for me. The kids are of course already dead, as their bodies were zipped up in bags and buried. Beyond that though, Toodles has just died, and it's further playing on their mortality. Curly however is staying put. She says how the boy genius just wants to help people and is fully under his spell. Snitches get stitches and end up in ditches though, so Curly promises to not tell anyone where they're going. But I do think it's implied by what goes on that, yeah, she was the one who snitched. Now saying that, you know, Joe was like asking about the boat all the time to his mates, who also show up at the end. I mean, he wasn't exactly subtle, was he? So it could have been either one of them, but personally I think Curly was behind it. Dame is someone she confides in, and basically a symbol of trust for the children. Dame might have even asked about Arthur off screen, and yeah, she might have just cracked at me like, the kids are making a break for it. This is the best place I've ever been, 5 stars TripAdvisor. I think the main thing we have to realize though is that boys eventually gonna do something so erratic that it gets them killed. Though the whole thing with the specimens was played off as an accident, we know that Boy would have brought the samples back to his island with or without the help of the hybrids. He was working with Petrovich and knew exactly what cargo that the Maginot was carrying. Now if it wasn't that, you know, it would be something else, and the guy's got a very cavalier attitude. He's called Boy Cavalier. He's got a very boyish cavalier attitude because that's subtext, but it's basically showing that if they stay here long enough, something's gonna get them killed. Wendy is just very lucky she can speak Xenomorph, like some crazy Dr. Dolittle. Now, Wendy, Joe, and Nibs need a distraction, so Wendy hacks the security at the lab. I love how as we come in, we can see the dead Xenomorph's tables completely at an angle. The acid in the blood's just slowly corroding the table, and over the episodes, it's been bent more and more out of shape. Wendy then just decides, yeah, just open up the door, and she unleashes the Xenomorph on the workers in the lab. Feel a bit bad for that woman just doing her research, mate, but yeah, she actually manages to escape. If you pay attention to the footage, you can see her dash out the room as it goes after the soldiers. It absolutely cleans house though, and we see it wipe out most of the staff. And one thing that I found interesting is that the hybrids are actually in Slightly's room. On the left of the monitor, we can see Slightly's cricket pads just before the worker gets skewered. This is something that we saw earlier in the season when Kirsch was talking to him. Might have just been a case of forgetting to redress the set, or maybe they chose to meet here to try and find Slightly and Smee. Either way, it's a badass scene, and us Alien fans have been eating good this season with the Xenomorph stuff. It also kind of shows there's a very dark side to Wendy. She's kind of moving away from her humanity and now views them as something that's just getting in the way. We then cut to Dame looking at pictures of Arthur that were clearly taken last week. Guessing she's wondering why he hasn't texted back, as he probably never said goodbye. Obviously, you know, she could have left with him and got a job somewhere else, but I think she feels a responsibility to the hybrids. Just like how Arthur could have left Toodles to his own devices, but instead he had to go in the lab and find him after seeing his tracker was broken. I do wonder if this loyalty will lead to Dame's death as well, as both have put the kids above their own self-interests. Boy then walks in raging and says,
Where is he? Who? The spouse?
Now, it's kind of similar to how he only referred to Joe as the brother. It shows how little he cares for the people around him. He only sees those in his life as employees and his citizens. Even those that died in the crash were people he didn't really care about. Though he mockingly asked Yutani for thoughts and prayers, he wasn't giving that himself. He was just there to basically make money from the crash that he caused. Now, we did theorize that Arthur's firing would cover for slightly taking his body. However, Boy knows he didn't get on the transport. Because of this though, Boy thinks he's potentially loose somewhere, and we can see the pressure finally getting to the character.
Why? Because he's a fucking saint!
That's like the first time he's really had an outburst, and this downfall of his company is coming not only from the inside, but also the outside as well. Considering that we haven't heard of Prodigy in the movies, we can safely assume the boy genius isn't that smart and his company will soon expire, so sell your stocks. I do feel like we might even see the island destroyed next week, and that Morrow's strike team is just the first wave coming in. They're of course there purely to secure the Xenomorph, and then I feel like Yutani's just gonna send in the cavalry and bomb the shit out of the island. Dame's then given the bombshell news that Arthur's missing, and he's turned off all the trackers. She genuinely has no idea what's going on though, and then we get the alarm. Once again we watch as Boy's rude to Kirsch and he says,
Be useful!
I really wish we could just see Kirsch slap the smug off that little shit's face, and I do hope we get that at some point. We then see a team moving through the room covered in the mist. I do wonder if this is where the eggs will be planted when the Xenomorphs finally overrun the island. Earlier in the season we saw the mold scrubbers working here, and it would provide the perfect environment for the creatures. Now, in case you missed our last video, we talked about how Noah Hawley revealed those guys were just cleaning away the mold. On that breakdown, Firestud Kai in the comments discussed how the mold may have a deeper meaning, beyond just what we said in that the compound's becoming infected. They said that if we can't even contain something terrestrial like mold, then it's going to be impossible for us to contain the creatures, which is a point I love. Look, I even wrote I love that as a reply. Mold is also harmful to humans, whereas it isn't harmful to the machines. So again, it's kind of playing into the different levels of danger. Behind them, we then catch Slightly and Smee sneaking Arthur's body around. Kirsch comes across them and then reveals he knows what's going on. It was like,
Hello, Austin. How was your honeymoon?
Well, it turns out that Vanessa was a fembot.
Yes, we knew all along, sadly.
He then directs them to the best route, and as we know, this is all part of the plan. I love how this is the first time he's helping as well, but he's only doing it because he knows they're going to be late otherwise. He wants them to meet with Morrow, and then this will allow them to lead him into his trap. I did wonder if Kirsch also had turned the trackers back on, and this is how they were able to find the pair with Arthur. He may have even tipped off the team later on about Wendy, and out of everyone, seems like the only person who's actually in control. And the only one who isn't an absolute idiot. Like, we see all the staff running around to find the Xenomorph. For me, I'd be going the other way and trying to swim back to New Zion. Lend me a wetsuit, mate. Meanwhile, Joe, Nibs, and Wendy head out, and we see the kid's gravesite. Nibs sees her real name, which is Rose Ellis. We then see Marcy's, and it must have been insanely emotional for Joe. I think the fact they buried them also highlights the corporation know the truth. They know that the kids have died and that a machine simply downloaded their consciousness. It's now copying them, but isn't really them. It's simply an AI. Much in the same way that Grok can mimic an author or the style of an artist, this machine's now simply copying a human. And it really asks questions about the soul. If we have a soul, then can that be copied and turned into something digital? Or is this lack of a soul, while the mind's still going, basically something that's sending people like Nibs insane? Wendy reminds them that it's not them, which is something I agree with. To her though, it's sort of a reincarnation and they're still alive. But Nibs says,
I don't think I am anymore.
I think Nibs knows the truth, and this is what's been destroying her. When she's looked in the mirror, been confronted with a near-death experience, had her memory erased, she's slowly seeing that isn't how humans act. To me, she's trying to do outlandish things to retain her humanity, and basically doing things like saying she's pregnant. which a machine can't do, but the fact she's saying it is because, like, look, I am human, I am human. I do also wonder if these minds can switch bodies as well, much in the same way they could theoretically remake Toodles. Maybe even a scientist like Arthur could transfer them, but yeah, that guy is soon to be crab food. Either way, the graves have clearly been abandoned, and due to the growth, no one's really visiting them, which you really wouldn't due to the machines now seeming like the kids. I think it's sad though how the children were basically just euthanized, and then machines that mimic them were pushed by the corporation like they were the brand new iPhone. What's really happened though is what Arthur touched on earlier in the season, and in the end, they've just killed some kids. Well, to me anyway. I know some people think that they are the kids and they are still them, but if you disagree, let me know below. What we can't argue though is that beneath their exterior, they're all just machines, and I think this revelation with Toodles really hammered that home. If you want to see what they're like beneath the machine, then did you know we've just launched our brand new hybrid t-shirt which features Wendy. Our artist Sheridan based this off some of the promo art for the show, and it's one of the coolest designs we've done so far. Sheridan hit me up just as we were about to publish this video as well and said, look mate, we've got an even better shirt I've just launched. It's the bloody eye shirt. It's the best bloody shirt on the design. Scrap that other shirt, but buy that as well. But we've got the Oculus eye shirt as well that you definitely need to pick up. We've also got our isolation shirt, and I've just launched a variant version of it with the Maginot crest on the front. As always, if you get 3 of them, mate, you're going to get put into the deal where you get 20% off. You buy 2, I think you get 15% off. There's deals, 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 and it's a steal, steal, steal. Cheers. Joe then spots the security team and they decide to move on. Wendy might just be telling herself that the graves aren't them as she sees a memory of her body being zipped up and then sheds a tear. It's an interesting take on what it means to be human though, and while I wasn't too hyped on this part of the story, especially in the early episodes, at the moment, it's probably my favourite part of the show. Other than the eye, but it brings back a lot of memories and I can't look at myself in the mirror because I've got fucking gammy eye at the moment, which I hate! In terms of the synths though, I think Wendy's up there with like Bishop or David for me, as there's a complex side of them that makes him a really interesting character. Now, I kind of see her and Kirsch as opposite sides of the same coin. Kirsch is sort of like David in that he wants to watch what happens when chaos comes for the humans. In Covenant and Prometheus, you know, that was in the form of the Xenomorphs and Engineers, but in this show, there's lots of different specimens. Basically, we're his experiments, and that's kind of what I get from Kirsch. Wendy, I think, also sees a lot of kinship in the creatures, but she wants to use them for the betterment of mankind. So it's a more human perspective, whereas Kirsch is more like a machine. Either way, they then head out, and Joe's of course been studying the security guards on the island, knows the patrols, and also what route to take to the boats. So, complete with 2 killer robots, he's able to outsmart them for a bit. We then rejoin slightly in Smee and see as they're almost caught. We get a look at the patrol, which has something very, very cool. We can see one of them has a machine gun, which is held just like a smart gun, which is one of the best guns in science fiction. He even has the shoulder-mounted light and body armor that the smart gun operators have in the franchise. I was like this when I spotted it. It's interesting that this and the pulse rifle are being used by these prodigy security guards, as the Colonial Marines used them when they were working through Yutani. The other guys in the squads are using versions of the M41A pulse rifle, and I do feel the fact there's so many guards patrolling the island also means the facility's a lot less guarded. This could lead to the other creatures breaking out, though they do seem to reunite and capture Morrow. The soldiers pass by, but it's all gone wrong for Slightly. They're like, dude, where's my face hugger?
Dude, where's my car?
The creatures come off and we see as it's now dead. This is similar to how they found an alien after it had planted its seed. But hey, it seems like everything's okay, and to make things even better, Arthur's doing fantastic. Always saw like what he's going through here is sort of that weird euphoria that dying people have, which is known as terminal lucidity. Just before death, people will seem normal, totally healthy, and maybe even happy. In the franchise, it happened to Kane, Navarro, and now also Arthur. It almost kind of puts him into a high here. We know from Kane that he had a nightmare about smothering, and I do wonder if getting out the dream then makes you feel better. Like waking up from a nightmare and realizing it's not real. Hey, it's not that bad. Arthur also doesn't remember things because his brain has likely repressed it. But it seems fine, and better than fine, mate. Seems great. Then leads to a very funny conversation where they try and convince him it was a gas leak and they dragged him out to safety.
Confusion is a side effect of the gas.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic piece of comedy, as Arthur casually says,
What is that?
He has no idea what the facehugger is and is confused why he's outside. We also hear that he and Dame had a fight and that he doesn't want her last memory of him to be that. Does kind of make me think he was expecting to go away forever and that the company wouldn't let the pair see each other. Because corporations basically control everyone's lives and he knows how secretive the island is. Now though he dies, I do have a theory about what could be coming down the line, which I will discuss later.
I think you maybe saved my life.
Then he just stares at him thankfully, which about that, mate. Arthur's also studying them though to see if they're telling the truth.
Children have to learn how to lie. And you two are still learning.
Like my kid will be, I come in my house and I'm like, where the hell's my alien Funko Pop? I need it for the video, and the kid will be like looking around like going, I don't know. Kids need to learn to lie basically. So he knows something's amiss. Morrow never mentioned the chest burster though, so the kids don't really know what's coming. As they head out, we then get some clever editing as we see flashes of the last episode. It's great visual shorthand for memory recall and Arthur slowly remembering what happened. He realizes that something's wrong and starts to snap out of his euphoric state.
Wait.
However, he wants to still help the kids, even offering to take them back and figure things out. You know, the guys at this point, he could just go to the dock and he knows the boat code, so he could easily escape. However, he just wants to look after the kids, even under the threat from Atom that he'd be shot if he stayed there. We know that he never managed to have them in real life, and the hybrids are a chance at raising them. This is of course taken from him, and Arthur's a very tragic character. He didn't get to have kids, was fired from his job, lost his wife, and then lost his life. I think how it highlights in this world, trying to do the right thing gets you killed. Morrow on the other hand has been completely ruthless, and this is what's kept him alive. Like even if he'd opened the door for Zaveri, that would have caused some more complications. And yeah, only room for one in the impact room anyway. Xenomorph might have gotten in earlier though, but because he was selfish, he ended up surviving. Arthur actually helps though and says,
That's the thing about lying. You do it once, and you gotta keep on lying.
no you don't. Slightly finally has someone who will listen to him and not just use him. He even sheds a tear and then they walk off holding hands. It's all fine, it's all gonna, oh crap. They're horrified as the chest burster comes out in a harrowingly awful scene. Just like the crew of the Nostromo, it takes them by surprise and sprays blood everywhere. We probably can't show it, but it does kind of show how much special effects have improved since the 70s, as though it's the same thing happening in the scene. You can see just everything's been turned up and looks way more realistic. Like even the padding they had with John Hurt, they don't have that here. However, I figured out your trick, mate. Sand is actually fantastic for stuff like this, as you can bury the person and have certain parts of their body popping out and then use a dummy for the rest of it. Which I believe is what they do. I think it's his head and then he's buried under the sand with his arms out and then they've got a fake body there. If that's not the case, sorry, but yeah, looking at that effect and trying to figure it out, I was like, this is how I would do it because I'm a big Hollywood movie star. I'm a big director. I made 10 James Bond videos. It all happens so fast though, and the creature scurries away before they even know what happened. The kids are traumatized as Smee says, you lied to me, and the poor old lad is being used and lied to after thinking he was helping. He's managed to avoid the horror of what's going on so far, but this is a brutal wake-up call. Now Slightly's only hope is to bring the corpse tomorrow. So they drag his body along the sand, and yeah, the kids are just out their depth. We then see Curly going to see Dame. She says mum, which is interesting, as Boy constantly reminded Dame that they're not her children.
Mom, I'm here.
They'd obviously look for that kind of figure on Neverland, and it reflects how in Peter Pan, the Lost Boys wanted Wendy to be their mother. Throughout the breakdowns, we've constantly talked about how the roles have changed, and how certain characters have become different characters in the story. So I do feel like Dame could become the Wendy mother type figure, and Wendy will become a mother to the Xenomorphs. She will then become the queen, and lead them to take over the island. The moment reminds us though that they're kids at the end of the day, as she says,
Everything's hard and I don't know what to do.
It's a very vulnerable moment for Curly, and I think it shows why the machines are breaking down. Ultimately, kids are chosen for this because they're young enough to where their minds can be copied without necessarily breaking them. We do know it can't be done on adults, however, in putting a kid in a machine, you're basically copying across someone who isn't fully developed mentally and thus they can't handle what they're going through. So the only people who can be copied can't deal with it, and thus we now know why the hybrid program isn't featured further in the timeline. Other than like they only came up with it in 2024 5 or whatever, but this is why it doesn't appear in Aliens and stuff like that. Anyway, Curly's now just seeing her perfect world crumbling around her and realizing Neverland isn't what it was sold as. Toodles is dead, Wendy's taking nibs, and she's sat there wanting a nice normal life. It's unclear as to whether she told Dame about what happened, but again, in my eyes, she most likely did. We then see poor Arthur splayed out on a bamboo raft as the boys take him out to meet Morrow. All his dignity's gone and he's just a lifeless empty shell, just like Toodles. This also reminded me a lot of like the dead character in a Vietnam War movie. I have no idea when they had time to build a raft though. Like a proper raft that as well. No wonder that took ages. Morrow then appears with his crew like Frogman Special Forces and says they've made landfall. It's kind of like a nightmare where they just emerge out the water. They're clearly prepared for a fight and also have pulse rifles and smart guns. We then see Morrow say,
I told you to come alone.
He's cold and nasty to poor Slightly, and it seems Arthur died for nothing. It's crazy how Slightly's more human than Morrow, and he doesn't even tell him what happened to his mother. Slightly just breaks down, and Arthur's body is just unceremoniously dumped into the water. We saw that doll washed up on the beach during the episode 4 title, which is where I was expecting him to turn up. In the end, we don't see that doll or really what it means, but that takes us into theory time. Okay, so shut up for a second, right? I've been thinking about the eye, and I'm wondering if it needs to inhabit a host while it's alive. After all, the cat looked pretty mangled, and I'm pretty sure it killed the sheep upon entering its body. So really its victims are all dead and just being puppeted around. Because of this, I do wonder if the eye could potentially inhabit Arthur's body. This could lead to it talking to Boy, and we'd also get an amazing scene with Dame in which she sees what her husband's turned into. Just having him wanting to see her again, being twisted in this sort of fashion would be such a mental way to take things. And I do kind of hope they do something like that in the finale. Anyway, that's a theory time. In space, no one can hear your theory time. Anyway, we cut to Boy Cavalier with the Ocelus in his office in one of the most unnerving escalations so far. We learn that the Xenomorphs have escaped via waste pipe and that the Lost Boys are living up to their name. His focus should be on them, but once again, Boy's attention's been taken by something new and shiny.
Oh my god.
Sheep have been used in major breakthroughs in science before, with Dolly the sheep being the first ever clone. That's kind of what they're going for here, and the eye demonstrates its intelligence as it's able to recite pi. All advanced civilizations would know this, and it knocks away the next 2 digits. Like, they're saying all advanced civilizations would know this, but I didn't know it, so maybe I'm an idiot. What? This is how I find out. As for the final insult, it drops some shit and shows how demeaning it is to be kept in a cage.
Oh, if only you could talk.
I do wonder, like, if it inhabits a human, if it would just attack another human, or if it would sit down and be like, look, I've got a human body already, I don't really need to upgrade. It's like when you get a new phone, you know what I mean? I do wonder if it would do that. Yes, it attacked Severi on the ship, but it knew that crew were hostile and trying to keep it in a cage. So maybe if you're like, oh, look, you just take over a body, I'm going to sort you that, a 24-month contract, you sit down, enjoy yourself. If the eye would be up for that. It also kind of shows how much of an idiot that boy is. Wendy exhibited uniqueness at first, so he completely loved her. However, when she was out of commission, he then focused on Curly. Then he went back to Wendy when she could talk to the aliens. He's just so erratic and ultimately inviting more and more dangerous things around him. It's at the point that he's moving the sheep into his office. Like, what are you doing? Everything is on fire around him, but at least he has that smart sheep, I suppose. He even says,
You're being ridiculous.
No, you are, mate, because it's all going to go to shit. Can you not tell what the way the season's going? Now, I want you to pay attention to what Adam says here.
If this creature were to escape and embed itself in the human population.
Or just one person.
Emphasis on the human population, not the population. The fact he says human makes me think that our theory about Adam being a machine is indeed correct. Because normally you just say the population. Now, the other evidence for this is that during episode 4, he of course caught that ball. This is something Wendy also did as well, and I believe he's a machine, which I feel this line further confirms. We know from that article on board that he was in a car crash that killed one of his family members. It even has me wondering if Adam's modeled after his father and he basically replaced him as an advisor. I'm not theory timer, don't worry, but I do feel like, yeah, seeing that here just kind of struck a chord with me. But yeah, Boy is going ahead with keeping the sheep close, even though everything is shown they can't be contained. I think my biggest criticism about the show is how everyone's just a complete idiot. I could explain the Maginot Crew away because they just hire the cheapest workers, and only the desperate ones would work for 65 years.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
But last week, Dame just sent Nibs back to her friends after wiping her brain. The only thing that seems smart is the eye. I also think Boy does see some kinship in it though. It seems to just do things to see what would happen. Basically, to see the outcome, just like what Boy is doing. Banging the door and stuff, it's not even sure if it'll help, but it knows it's going to cause some chaos. And this is what Boy's doing throughout the season. Either way, he wishes the sheep could talk, which leads him to maybe his most sinister idea yet. He wants to put the Ocelus into a person and gets the idea from Adam's warning. Did make me laugh as well when he said this.
You know, someone who talks and uses a toilet.
So yeah, he's just had a shit in the cage. We see just how expendable his staff are though, as he wants to put it into a scientist. However, he then changes his mind and wants to put it into someone with a low IQ like a mold scrubber, just to see if it makes them intelligent. First we had the staff murdered by the Xenomorph, and now some poor buggers gonna have an alien eye in their head. Like, I wonder what the Glassdoor reviews are like working here. We did see Shmuel taking over as well, which led to him trying to solo a Xenomorph. I do wonder if we'll get some sort of hellish hybrid of the Ocelus and one of the other creatures, which this could all be leading towards. Boy then realizes he has the perfect person, which is when we cut to Joe. So yeah, you're screwed, mate. We then see an old piece of equipment, which looks a lot like the engineer's chair on LV-426. Don't think it's the same one, but yeah, just the way it's shot, it did kind of remind me of that. They're almost at the dock, but are then ambushed by Weyland-Yutani soldiers. Nibs looks like she tries to mimic a Xenomorph to intimidate the troops. Reminds me of the weirdo scientist in Alien Resurrection. Their Giraffe was trying to imitate a Xenomorph, and Nibs is also just as loony as he is. We then get the Xenomorph in the jungle, and when I heard about this series, you know, having it on Earth in these kind of environments, that was a big selling point of the show for me. I love that the yellowy head of the creature also helps it blend into the environment. It leaps from a tree and massacres the whole squad, and reminds me of something out of Predator. This is like the perfect environment that we could have the creatures facing off against each other in. And yeah, with Predator Badlands right around the corner, a Romulus sequel coming very soon, I do hope that we're building towards a crossover in this. The fact that Wendy's immortal as well, it means that she can easily pop up in those films that are further in the timeline. The creature then approaches, covered in blood, and Wendy touches it for the first time. What we are seeing is basically what Ripley may have even been able to do in Alien 3 had she not had that horrific experience with them on board the Nostromo. I'm guessing that the creature would have protected its queen and thus would have protected Ripley from danger. So she may have even been able to use it as an attack dog as well. And also like that creature in general, they basically put the prosthetics on a dog to see if it would work, and there's some hilarious behind the scenes footage of Alien 3 where it's just a dog dressed up as a Xenomorph. Wendy, however, sees some kinship in the alien as they've both been experimented on and also controlled. Joe then makes a face, and Alex Lawther's physical acting is just so good in this show. It's great to see him grow as an actor, and I think I've been a fan since like Black Mirror and End of the Effing World. We'll bleep the swear in there. We then see the carnage that's just as bad as what happened in those Green Berets out of Fort Bragg.
I knew this man. Green Berets out of Fort Bragg.
He's starting to realize that saving his sister means the cost of someone else's life. It's the genesis of him tasering Nibs and trying to stop his friends from being killed. He's starting to realize that this isn't his little sister anymore and that she's actually extremely dangerous. She has zero qualms about killing as long as it helps her reach her goal. It's quite a dark turn, and if she becomes the queen, this is the attitude she'll need. We then catch up with Arthur's chestburster, which gets hit with a net, reminding me heavily of the Predator franchise once again. We saw it was used on a Xenomorph in Alien vs Predator 1, which we do have a breakdown on the channel now for. Can I tempt you with some breakdowns, sir? So here, it does feel like a callback to that movie, or at least them using similar technology. The way it slithers is very snake-like, and there's lots of Garden of Eden iconography. Beyond Atom Eve, Boy's trying to play God, and Wendy's been blessed with knowledge. She's tempted to turn against the humans, and will now try and leave the paradise due to what a snake can take her to. Now, we later learn that who grabbed it's the Prodigy security team. Morrow's then seen heading to the bunker, which is what I believe the kids entered all the way back in episode 3. The set design looks absolutely stunning though. Feels like a Bond villain's lair on the outside and like a spaceship when we're on the inside. Morrow thinks he's got one over on Prodigy until the soldiers rush in. It's a very similar scene from the crash site. There we saw Morrow hold up both Smee and Slightly. Kirsch then entered and basically took over the conversation. He then says,
What did you do?
Which is also what Wendy says at the end.
What did you do?
Both end up with the same fate, and the pair are captured by Prodigy's forces.
Nobody likes a sore loser.
Morrow then looks at the chest burster. It's kind of an evolution of the egg scene in episode 2, as there he looked at the egg, was confronted by Kirsch, Smee and Slightly, and then leapt away. Here though, Kirsch isn't going to let that happen again, and he looks at the chest burster and then gets arrested.
Finders keepers.
Kirsch saying that is also just like his lines to Morrow in episode 2. He said how the ship isn't a place, but it is in fact an object. It's like a ball that's gone over a neighbour's fence, and Kirsch is that neighbour. The lads then go over to him and stand behind him, just like what they did on the Maginot in episode 3. It's kind of like your dad getting you out of trouble. Morrow's in denial, saying that this isn't over, and he's then locked up. Did make me laugh as well how Kirsch says that Smee and Slightly are grounded. Yes, the parent dynamic is great. We then catch up with our other trio as they arrive at the docks. However,
It's a trap!
now one thing I haven't mentioned is how much attention they put into the framing of the kids as they walk. It reminds me a lot of Peter Pan, where the kids walk in a line. There they follow the leader, and Michael even has a cuddly toy, just like what Nibs has in this episode. It further hammers home those connections to Peter Pan, and just like the Lost Boys were caught, these guys are caught as well. The boat itself's also painted yellow, which kind of mirrors the loaders in the premiere episodes that drove out to the crash site. So here they get caught, which leads to a standoff between Joe's friend and the rest of the Prodigy team. Mr. Strawberry's thrown into the water, and Nibs goes absolutely mental. Like, she completely tears off that security guard's jaw, like some kind of Mortal Kombat fatality. Again, in a possible Predator reference, she holds up the body part, just like the Yautja would hold up a skull and spine. I do wonder if Mr. Strawberry might also wash up in the shore as well, and kind of be like the doll in the recap. The soldiers are kind of screwed though, as they've been told not to harm the merchandise. So they basically just stand there watching everyone go on the attack. Nibs and Wendy make easy work of them before trying to call in the Xenomorph. Proper like a kill streak reward. Siberian almost has her jaw ripped off as well before Joe sees sense and incapacitates Nibs. It's not clear if she's dead, as we do see her twitching like Toodles did. I love how they have the tasers as well, and basically you have the gun set to stun mode. The white blood also drips out of Nibs, and yeah, I will be interesting to see if she comes back. Rashidi tells Joe to drop the guns, and can also be seen wearing the same headset that the Colonial Marines wore. In the end though, Joe's betrayed his sister, and Wendy's lost everyone she looked up to. She was desperate to reunite with him, only for Boy to try and get into her head. She even said she could speak for herself, and while Joe realizes his sister's changed too much, she realizes she can't trust anyone human. Because of this, again, I do feel like the only way back's to erase her. However, in doing this, Boy would lose the person who can speak to the Xenomorphs. I don't see any other way back though, and it's the one thing Prodigy have in their arsenal. Every time they do it though, they chip away at the hybrids, and it all comes with a cost. Closing out the episode, we then get Songs for the Deaf by Queens of the Stone Age, from their album Songs of the Deaf as well. I mean, I wish I was deaf when I quite like that album, to be fair. I did when I was a kid. I loved that album. I'm trying to sound cool and say I didn't like it, but I did actually love it. But yeah, like them System of a Down came on Kerrang all the time, and I would sit and watch them. We also had Dave Grohl and the Foo Fighters, the absolute GOAT. Unless you're his wife, of course. Now, Songs for the Deaf is a concept album all about a road trip across California. The lyrics for this song discuss the study of dying and then being in a hearse. As we saw, Nibs and Wendy saw their grave and have fully gone off the deep end now. They've abandoned their old selves and embraced their abilities. The song was teased by Noah Hawley in an interview where he explained why he's got such big rock songs to close out the episodes. He said that he wants to make it a huge arena show, with each song being a celebration of what you've just watched. Overall, it's a good way to close out the episode, and this one was full of action, lots of whoa, what the hell's going on here, and yeah, crazy moments. Like even Sigourney Weaver's loving the show right now. Personally, I think it's pretty good. I think I do have some problems with the characters and the decisions, and yeah, I just hope that some of the plot holes I have, or even things like how Wendy can even do all this, gets expanded upon for the finale. I don't know what's going to be happening. There's, lots of things that could kick off, and at least the shows, constantly kept me guessing. But yeah, very excited to see how they wrap this up, and I'd of course love to hear your thoughts in the meantime. Also, thank you for joining me every week. I know it seems like I've had conjunctivitis for months and months now. It's actually been a week and a half at this point, but yeah, the amount of videos that I've filmed in those couple of days, it just makes it seem like it's lasting forever and ever. But all your support's appreciated. Thank you as always, and I'd of course love to hear your thoughts as well in the comment section when you go down there and hit the thumbs up on your way. Did you know as well that members of the channel also get early access to videos? If you click the join button, you get at least one breakdown a week before anyone else. Costs just 99 cents a month. We really appreciate it, and thank you to everyone who goes that extra mile to mean that we can just make the videos like this and to do big, long, in-depth breakdowns instead of like rushing out the 10-minute ones that we used to on the day, where I was like, I need to just blast through these bullet points. Yeah, we get a lot more time to do these, so I really appreciate it. Now, if you want something else to watch, we've got a big breakdown on screen right now. Did you want to see that Alien vs Predator breakdown, mate? Is that what you wanted to see? Well, it's on screen right now, so yeah, head over there after this. Out of the way though, thanks for sticking through this video. I've been your host, Paul. You've been the best. I'll see you next time. Take care. Peace.